When Izzy contacted me last year, I was really excited about the possibility of being able to show my work in a non-commercial space, because it meant that I could take work out of my studio and just show people how I work and the processes that are involved, rather than having something that's finished and, you know, sparkling and ready for a commercial gallery. So this captures probably a more honest picture of what I am as an artist. These pictures here are actually, I call them my sketchbook drawings, but they're not actually from my sketchbook because I'm too rough with paper to be able to use a sketchbook. So I take paper and I completely abuse it and throw things at it, tear it up, scribble on it. But these are vital ways for me to get over my ideas. And without being able to work on paper and abuse paper the way that I do, I wouldn't be able to do anything else in my studio. And what's interesting is that every single time I draw, there's always these sort of scribbly grey marks, and they've been with me since 1987 when I graduated. I always revert to this sort of repetitive emotional response to paper, and it always has the same thing. And what's interesting about these pieces is that the same scratchy lines can be seen over the last 20 years through all of my work, whether it's the sculptures that I've produced here or whether it's the installation within the space at the back of the gallery. They're always there. I call them my sort of, well, they're my emotional mark, really. I've just recently rediscovered gesso. These aren't gesso. These are, I never use acrylic. I can't stand acrylic because it dries too quickly. But what I do like is graphite and marble dust. And I do use PVA to sort of throw things on there. And they're not sort of traditional artist papers either. I think these were actually torn out of the back of a really old book. So, you know, I like something with a bit of age or a bit of quality to it. In 2004, I was very lucky to be given an etching press, and that's when I was able to start producing work in my studio using that press. I don't etch, as most people would etch, is in metal and with lots of acids, because I don't have the facilities and also I don't have the patience. So what I tend to do is I get big bits of plastic and I treat the plastic pretty much the same way that I would treat the paper that over in my other drawings. I'd sort of beat it up a bit. And then from those sort of bits of plastic, I then create prints. These prints were created using sort of lots of different types of wire and graphite, and drawing quite intricately on plates with tiny sort of rollerball pens, like 0.1 rollerball pens. And then I put them through the press and they'd create images that were very quick. Yeah. And for me, I mean, I am an impatient artist to one extent. And I like the sort of idea of getting work out there, because when I'm in my studio, I'm there for a reason, and that's to produce work and to sort of get across my ideas of what's important to me. And you know, having a print press allows me to sort of work through an idea really, really quickly, and then from a series of 6, I could say, right, I really like the composition of this, and then I will take that print and then put it onto canvas, because I have this sort of respect for canvas, which sometimes isn't always a good thing, you know. And you know, I'm very sort of careful of how I use canvas and things. But I think essentially, I prefer to work on paper. These pieces are called Synapse, and I really like the way that they sort of float like a memory would float within your brain, or, you know, like a sort of almost, I suppose, in a way like the wind would be in the trees in the Welsh landscape. I've always made things with my hands. I've always tried to work in 3 dimensions. I'm not very good at it. I wouldn't call myself a sculptor by any means, but I like the tactile nature of working in that respect. And in I think it was 2011, I was asked to take part in Blink, and part of the sort of remit there was I had to create something in 3 dimensions with a digital element. Essentially, it's a sort of a cube of scaffolding that was covered in 30,000 metres of thread, and then a very fine pin white light was passed across the thread to create a sort of movement on something that was static. And that sort of element of having a tiny amount of light on something that was huge sort of captured probably the essence of my work, really, quite truthfully. I love black. Black is really important to me. Most of the sculpture, most of the time, was black. I knew it was there, and everybody else knew it was there. It was like dark matter. But the light sort of fell and collected on just tiny elements of it, in the same way that, you know, our brain is full of memories from when we were born, when we were 2, 4, 5. We all have memories of doing silly things. We know they're there, but we don't remember them all the time. The little light, you know, sometimes sort of sparks, and we see that. We see that sort of thing, and it's the same. A sort of synapse, you know. And then after Blink, I sort of went back to my studio and I did a lot more drawing and sort of pushed the digital back into sort of paperwork. And then I realised that paper was actually too flat for the ideas that I was having. And so I created sort of these metal cubes and started sort of treating them again like I do my paper, just by throwing string at them and winding them around and just to see what would happen. And when I was in my studio space, it was quite late one night, and I had the lights on, and the shadows from the piece that I was creating became more important than the actual piece itself, which is the shadows behind here. And the shadows then became part of the process that was brought back then into paper. So I work in lots of different materials, but light is always at the centre of what I'm trying to create. I'm trying to capture something that's sort of intangible to make it tangible, if that makes sense.